have you ever risked everything, even your own life, just to protect someone who didn't even see the danger coming? This is the story of a man who put his body between death and his boss, but what he got in return will shock you. The gates of the mansion rose high, iron bars polished till they gleamed under the sun. Inside, the gardens stretched wide roses and lilies planted by her. Nora walked through them every morning, her silk robe brushing the flowers as if she could touch memory itself. She was 30, beautiful in a way that didn't need effort, her father's sharp cheekbones softened by her mother's gentleness. The empire was hers now, the companies, the estates, the mansion. Every wall carried her father's shadow, every boardroom his echo. She carried that weight proudly, reminding herself that she wasn't just living in his legacy, she was protecting it. Liam, her husband, often kissed her forehead as he left in his dark suit, carrying the confidence of a man who knew the world bent for him. He smiled at her at breakfast, laughed at her jokes, poured her a glass of wine at dinner. To anyone looking in, theirs was the perfect life. But Nora noticed things. The phone calls he stepped out to take, the faint smell of perfume that wasn't hers, the way his eyes lingered on his screen long after midnight, lips curved in a smile she didn't share. She told herself it was nothing, that trust was the soil of marriage. Yet at night she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her hand flat against the empty space beside her. Camilla's name hadn't yet been spoken in the house, but her shadow was there. Nora felt it in the way Liam's touch had cooled, in the hollow places between his words. And then, there was Jack. He had driven her since her father's funeral. Tall, quiet, dark brown skin that caught the light like polished wood. His shirts were always crisp, his shoes dusted clean even on muddy roads. The son of Mrs. Amelia, the cook who had served the family since before Nora was born, Jack had grown up in the quarters behind the mansion. He knew every corner of the estate, every path Nora once ran down as a child. To Nora, he was part of the house, but lately she had begun to notice how his eyes followed her in the rearview mirror, steady, watchful, not with desire, but with something sharper. A kind of loyalty that felt almost protective. One evening, the rain pressing heavy on the roof, Nora caught the faintest reflection in the glass as she walked past Liam's study. He was inside, phone pressed to his ear, whispering. His tone low, urgent. She froze, leaning closer, her breath shallow. Yes, she won't suspect. Just keep her calm. We'll move soon, Liam murmured. His hand clenched the phone tight, eyes darting as though the walls themselves might listen. Nora's chest tightened. She pushed away, forcing her steps to sound light, as if she hadn't heard. But in her stomach, a stone dropped. Later that night, at the gatehouse hours later, Jack wiped the rain from his brow. He had seen the man leave. A stranger, slipping out of Liam's study, while the rain masked his steps. Jack's gut clenched. He'd grown up in this house he knew when danger was near. And tonight, danger had walked out of the front door with a smile. He gripped the wheel of the Range Rover, knuckles white. For years he had served quietly, never crossing the line between servant and master. But now, he felt Aitan unease creeping into his bones. Something was wrong. And he knew, sooner or later, he would have to choose whether to stay silent or step into the storm. The following week, Liam's days blurred into a rhythm of business meetings and lonely dinners. Liam was always caught up at the office, his excuses neat, his tone firm. Yet Nora felt the coldness spreading between them like harmattan dust. One evening, she waited longer than usual at the balcony. The mansion lights glowed against the night, her glass of wine untouched in her hand. At last, she heard the familiar growl of the SUV pulling in. Jack stepped out first, rain dripping from his shoulders, before opening the back door. But before I continue, I want you to do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, give a like, and drop your country in the comments. I will love to know where you are watching from, thank you. So let's get started. Liam emerged, adjusting his tie, a faint lipstick smear on his collar. Nora's stomach turned. She said nothing. Instead, she let her eyes lock on his for a beat too long. Liam smiled easily, pressing a kiss to her cheek, pretending not to notice her gaze. But Jack noticed. From where he stood, umbrella in hand, his jaw tightened. His mother had once warned him, "Jack, there are truths that servants should never carry. They burn heavier than secrets." Still, he couldn't unsee what was in front of him. Later that night, Jack sat in the quarters with Mrs. Amelia, his mother. The air was heavy with the smell of fried rice on the fire gas. She stirred quietly, before glancing at her son. "You're restless," she said, not looking up. Jack sighed. "Mrs. Amelia, what would you do if you saw a snake heading for someone who cannot see it? Would you keep quiet?" She stopped stirring. Her eyes lifted, sharp and knowing. "You talk about Nora." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Mrs. Amelia shook her head slowly. "This house has swallowed better men than you. If you choose to fight, remember you cannot fight power with bare hands." But Jack's fists clenched on his knees. He thought of Nora's tired eyes, the way her laughter had dimmed, and he knew silence was no longer safety. The very next day, proof found him. He had driven Liam to a hotel in Amsterdam. The instructions were clear. Wait outside, keep the engine running. But curiosity gnawed at him. Through the lobby window, he caught sight of Camilla tall, slim, her braids swinging as she leaned close to Liam. They walked together into a private lounge, their heads bent in conspiracy. Jack's chest hammered. He could turn away, pretend not to see. But something told him this was more than infidelity. He slipped out of the SUV, entered the lobby, and found himself close enough to catch their words. "The lawyer has everything ready," Camilla whispered. Her voice carried the ease of someone too confident. "Once she's gone, the empire falls straight into your hands. We'll disappear after. Nobody will suspect." Jack froze. His ears rang. Gone? The word coiled in his head like poison. He stepped back before they could notice him, heart racing. This was no longer about broken vows. This was murder. That night, he couldn't sleep. He paced his small room, shadows dancing on the walls. He thought of Nora, of her father's empire built over decades, of her quiet strength. He thought of her alone in her wing of the mansion, never imagining that the man beside her was sharpening a knife for her back. At dawn, he made his choice. When Nora stepped into the car that morning, Jack's voice broke the silence. "Ma," he said softly, his eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror. "May I speak?" She blinked. "Yes?" His hands tightened on the wheel. "There are things I have seen, things you may not believe, but your life is in danger." The air inside the car grew heavy. Nora stared at him, confusion flashing across her face. "What are you saying, Jack?" He swallowed hard. "Your husband is not the man you think he is." Her breath caught. Anger sparked in her eyes, sharp and defensive. "Enough. Stop this nonsense." "I wish it were nonsense," he murmured. His voice cracked, raw with urgency. "But he is planning something terrible. I beg you be careful." Nora's silence pressed between them. Her gaze shifted away, fixed on the road ahead. He had crossed a line, one that could cost him his job, maybe more. And yet, he couldn't regret it. As they drove past the sprawling streets of America, Jack caught a flicker of movement in the side mirror. A dark sedan trailing them, windows tinted, engine low. His heart lurched. This was no coincidence. The storm had begun. The sedan had followed them all morning. Jack's eyes flicked to the mirror, again and again, his knuckles tight on the wheel. Nora sat in the back seat, scrolling through her phone, unaware of the danger shadowing them. By the third turn, Jack was certain. They weren't just trailing, they were hunting. He pulled into a narrow street, pretending to take a shortcut, but the street was blocked. The sedan slowed, then stopped just a few meters behind. Two men stepped out, their steps quick, their eyes sharp. Jack's breath caught. His mind raced. He had no weapon, no backup, only his body, his will, and the vow he'd made silently to himself. Nora must not fall. "Stay in the car," he whispered firmly. Nora looked up, startled. "Jack, what's going on?" But before she could press further, the men were at the window. One rapped on the glass, his smile thin, unnatural. "Mrs. Ruth," the man said, his accent flat, unfamiliar. "Your husband sent us. He says we should take you somewhere safe." Jack stepped out instantly, blocking the door with his frame. Rain began to fall, fat drops spattering the ground, as if the heavens themselves braced for violence. "She's safe where she is," Jack said, voice steady. The man sneered. "Move aside, driver." The word cut, meant to belittle, but Jack stood rooted. "Go back to your car," he said. "This ends here." The second man drew a knife. The blade flashed under the streetlight. Nora gasped from inside the car, her hands clutching the seat in terror. It happened fast. The man lunged. Jack caught his wrist, twisting hard, the knife clattering to the ground. The other swung the punch, but Jack ducked, his elbow slamming into ribs with a dull thud. Pain shot through him as a fist caught his jaw, but he didn't falter. He thought like a man with nothing to lose and everything to protect. His shirt tore, blood streaked his arm, but he forced them back, step by step. "Jack." Nora's voice rang out, trembling, torn between fear and disbelief. One of the men grabbed the knife again, slashing wildly. Jack felt the burn of steel across his forearm, but he didn't stop. With a surge of strength, he rammed the man against the hood of the car, knocking the breath out of him. The second man staggered, eyes darting toward the sedan, fear replacing confidence. "Let's go!" he shouted, pulling his partner away. Within seconds, they were scrambling back to the car, engine roaring, tires screeching as they vanished into the rain. Silence fell, broken only by Nora's shaky breaths. Jack stood trembling, blood dripping from his arm, chest heaving. He turned slowly, eyes meeting Nora's through the glass. For the first time, she didn't see a driver. She saw a man who had just laid his life bare for hers. The car door opened. Nora stepped out into the rain, her dress clinging to her skin, her face pale. "Jacka." Her voice cracked, soft and raw. "You could have died." He shook his head, pain etched into every line of his face. "Better me than you, Ma." The word, Ma, stung her ears now. It sounded wrong, too distant, after what he'd just done. Was rushed to the hospital, far away. Sirens wailed, neighbors had called the police. Within hours, the truth spilled out. Liam's name linked to the attackers. Evidence of his betrayal unraveling like a rope, finally snapping. The mask he wore collapsed under the weight of his own greed. By the next evening, Liam was in handcuffs by the police with Camilla in an hotel. Nora sat alone in her bedroom that night, staring at the rain dripping down the windows. Jack's blood still stained her memory, his body standing between her and death. She pressed her palms together, whispering to the silence, "Why, Jack? Why risk everything for me?" But the answer had already been written in the way he looked at her. In the silence that spoke louder than words, the Empire was safe. The danger was gone. Yet her heart was no longer steady, because the one who saved her was never supposed to matter. And now, she could not stop thinking of Daniel. Back at the mansion, Jack moved through the house differently. His arm was bandaged, his steps slower, but his eyes never wavered from her. When she passed, he bowed his head, just as before, but something in his gaze lingered. Not servant, not master. Something deeper. One evening, Nora sat at the dining table, untouched food before her. She felt him standing nearby, silent as always. At last, she broke the quiet. "Sit," she said softly. Jack froze. "Mrs. Norrie, I cannot." Her voice firmed, but her eyes glistened. "Sit." Hesitant, he lowered himself into the chair across from her. The clink of cutlery. "You saved me," she whispered. Jack shifted, his hands clasped tight. "It is what anyone loyal would do." "No," she said, shaking her head. "Not anyone. You stood between me and death. You bled for me." Her breath trembled. "Why, Jack?" His silence stretched long. Finally, his voice broke low, almost rough. "Because your life is worth more than mine. Because I could not watch this house, your father's name, fall into darkness." He stopped, jaw tight. The words sat on his tongue, too dangerous to release. Her heart pounded. She leaned closer, eyes searching his face. That night she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Two truths tore at her. One told her to step into the light of what her heart already knew, that Jack was more than loyalty, more than a servant. The other hissed in her ear, "He is beneath you, the son of your cook, a man without status, without wealth." Nora has fallen for Jack, but every day her thoughts tear her apart. In her heart, she knows they could be a perfect couple. Yet in her mind she hears the voice that reminds her he is just a driver, the son of her cook. Now, Nora stands between two choices: to take a step toward love and risk everything her family name stands for, or to bury her feelings and accept a life without him. If you were in Nora's place, what would you do? Is there a different step and approach to it you will like to share with us? Please drop your advice as a comment in the comment box below. Your comment is a value contribution to society on someone passing through association like that. Creating a society value now by comment what to do. And remember to subscribe to this channel for more powerful storytelling. Stay with this channel. We don't just tell stories. We tell the ones that teach you moral lesson. Check our channel for more value story and stay safe for more powerful story coming your way. Bye.